Coming up on show 725, the lockdown shows how clean air is possible and what that means for EVs. Stick around, I'll tell you more. Plus, we're talking about charging discounts during the outbreak, how Adelaide Airport is electrifying, New York is electrifying buses, and Electric Avenue here in London. Yeah, I'll tell you more. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the show, wherever you are in the world. EV News Daily, and this is what happened on Sunday, 22nd of March. My name is Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. Two big thank yous. Firstly, to our Patreon supporters, Gilberto Rosado, or maybe it's Gilberto Rosado. I remember when you signed up as a producer, I had the same debate, and I could have actually just emailed you to say, is it Gil or Jill? Anyway, Gilberto. Gilberto Rosado? Yeah, anyway, you have gone up from being a producer to an executive producer. Your name appears in every show notes, and I'll give you a shout out on Sundays. And thank you so much. Thank you for increasing your support at a time when I know lots of people are looking at their finances, and I really do appreciate it. And a new producer signing up as well, Brian SHELDON, is making this show happen. Brian, you're a legend, my friend. So EVgo is one of the US's biggest fast-charging networks and announcing a special discount for fast charging during the outbreak of the coronavirus. The offer is targeted to those who are using EVs for work in priority industries and are required to keep the rest of us going. Healthcare, supplies, logistics. I've had my Amazon delivery every day. Not of food or toilet roll, of just stuff that I needed because I'm kind of adding to the kit that I've got around the podcast for various reasons. But anyway, not spending megabucks, but a cable here, an SD card there. And according to some reports, the discount is around 30%, which is a great thing to have during the outbreak. Prices of many things have been going up. People have been opportunists in trying to charge more for the things that you need, and EVgo in the US is doing the opposite. And the same thing is happening here in the UK. BP Chargemaster tweeted out earlier today, if you need to charge your emergency services vehicles, just in line with BP as they're doing with their fuel, their petrol and diesel, Chargemaster, of course owned by BP, is providing free charging and free membership across their charging network here in this country. At 7,000 charging units. The 150 kilowatt chargers are pretty new ones as well, and if you have an emergency services vehicle and you need to charge, get in touch with BP Chargemaster. This next story, the lead story on the podcast today, is going to give everyone hope listening today. According to the Swiss firm called IQAir, around half of the world's 50 most polluted cities, well, around half of those are all concentrated in one country. And that country is, any guesses? Well, I'll tell you, it's India, with much of the blame going to the sheer number of vehicles which are cramming overcrowded streets in India. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has just called on Indians to observe voluntary confinement, and that happened on Sunday. And the roads, which are usually crammed with cars, rickshaws, motorbikes and buses, were completely clear. 75 Indian districts are under lockdown to help control the spread of coronavirus, says this article, and that's had a positive effect on air quality in New Delhi, the world's most polluted capital city. A special report by Autoblog has raised this point. Immediately following the ban, New Delhi's air quality, the index, averaged around 93, and that is officially considered moderate. And trust me, that's good. Air quality is deemed to be good when the number goes below 50. New Delhi's air quality is regularly nowhere near that. It's considered unhealthy. The average is around 161 in March last year, according to IQAir. The financial capital of Mumbai, levels were down at 90, versus an average of 153 for March last year. India's toxic air claims a lot of lives. Now, I know that the current virus outbreak is claiming many lives, and when you see figures like 4,000 or 5,000 deaths in a single country like, or maybe 6,000 by the time you hear this podcast, in a country like Italy, it's shocking and it's hard to get your head around. But let me tell you this number. 1.24 million lives were lost in 2017 because of air quality in India. And sometimes the numbers get so big, it's hard to make your mind think of that as 1.24 million people. It's like a stat. It's hard to then, because 4,000 or 6,000 people dying in one country, you can get your head around that, and it's heartbreaking, and it stops you in your tracks. But 1.24 million is so big that I think it's human nature that we can't process it. But just think, there will be a time when all this virus has passed. There will be a time in the future when EVs are the way that we're all driving, when the way of burning fossil fuels has been consigned to history. And although the current air quality benefits are because of enforced lockdowns, because of a horrendous disease, if we're looking for a silver lining, surely it has to be, this is a glimpse into the future. This is a glimpse into what these places are going to be like. Places that have poisonous air. I don't know about you. I'm finding it hard to find silver linings at the moment, but this is definitely something. So I'll pop a link in the show notes to Autoblog if you want to read the rest of that article. Okay, let's do some bus stories on the podcast today. Adelaide's airport in Australia wants to become the first airport in the country with an all-electric bus fleet. Plans are beginning to introduce, as early as next year, the Sky Bus. They've been selected as the new operator of the shuttle buses over the next 5 years, says Electrive. Sky Bus is the operator in Australia and New Zealand that does provide these kind of services. They are currently also active in Melbourne and Auckland's airports, where the company does car park and airside transport for passengers, and now coming to Adelaide with all-electric buses. Brilliant news. I'll pop a link to Electrive in the show notes if you want to read more. And staying with this topic, the State Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA, announced that more than $24 million is now available to replace diesel-powered transit buses with all new pure electric buses, helping to improve air quality, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and help contribute to fixing climate change and promote investment in clean, green technology as well, as part of the state's $130 million allocation of the federal Volkswagen settlement money, the you did a very bad thing Volkswagen money, the NYSE RDA will administer approximately $18.4 million to fund electric buses through New York's truck voucher incentive scheme, and the New York Power Authority will manage $6 million for associated charging infrastructure. More great news, and more places going all electric. Now, whole streets are going electric in London. Siemens has unveiled the UK's first electric avenue, which is half a mile in length, and it's been fully converted to cater for EV charging, coined Electric Avenue in London. The project is in collaboration with Ubertricity and Westminster City Council, and they've converted 24 lampposts into EV charging points using existing infrastructure and street furniture. Residents can now charge EVs at any of those 24 locations down that one street. It's Sutherland Avenue in London, and a further 2 adjoining roads are going to be completed over the next coming weeks. An interesting solution to the problem of charging on street. This is the first, when we moved into this house that we were in quite recently, it's the first time we've had a driveway. The houses that my wife and I have always lived in have always been older style, in other words, built kind of Victorian, Edwardian, built before people even had personal cars, right? Before cars. And so, often we've been parking on the street, down the road from where we live. The idea of charging an EV, until we moved into this house, would have meant only public charging. So, we have a driveway now, and that is, trust me, that's a luxury. I know that people kind of comprehend we live in houses with lots of space and front gardens and garages and driveways, but there's so many places here in GB that especially in older cities as well, you just park on the street. And so you don't have that facility, and that is brilliant news. Okay, let's move on. There is so much Tesla Model Y news around at the moment. It's hard to pick out what is important and what is just someone making a video for YouTube for the sake of it. However, there is someone that whenever they make a YouTube video, it's always worth watching because he knows what he's talking about, and he's got a garage full of cars to back that up. Deliveries of the Tesla Model Y are now underway, but Brooks from the YouTube channel called Drag Times has taken delivery of his Tesla Model Y, beautiful, in multicoat red, fresh from taking ownership. The first thing he did, of course, he has a YouTube channel called Drag Times. You know what he did? Yes, he floored it to see how fast it would go. The answer, it turns out, is actually pretty impressive, says Chris Bruce at Motor One, according to the VBox telemetry. His Model Y performance went from 0 to 60 in 3.426 it was. Look, that's quick. 3.426 seems almost slow, pedestrian. In EV circles, the Draggy app shows it at 3.79. For the quarter mile, VBox did it in 11.9 seconds and a top speed of 116 miles an hour. And the Model Y going from 60 miles an hour to 130, which is an interesting test, doing that in 13 seconds and doing the half mile in 19 seconds. And of course, you know, like I say, it seems almost pedestrian because Teslas are doing 0 to 60 in less than 2.5 seconds, but this is a crossover, a genuine 5-seat crossover car. It's going to be heavier than the Model 3, and I've not either looked up the exact weight of the Tesla Model Y, and if Tesla haven't given the official weight, it may be online. No one I've seen on YouTube has done it on a weighbridge. It's got to be heavier than the Model 3, and it's actually getting comparable performance times. And Brooks also reckons, because when he was flooring it on the test, normally with a Tesla you get an initial jolt. So some EVs, they kind of, what's the best way to describe it? They sort of temper the first few milliseconds. With a Tesla, when you hit the accelerator, it just pushes you back instantly. You get instant power from the motors. Many EVs, I think all other EVs actually, normally just kind of dial in the power over the first few, it's just a few half a second, right? It doesn't give you that punch. He said that he's not getting that punch yet from the Model Y, so he reckons there's performance still to be unlocked from the Model Y, and that would be very interesting. And if you'd like to see the Model Y drifting, going off-road and accelerating on 0 to 60 times, the YouTube channel, which is called Out of Spec Motoring, has some experience taking Teslas off-road. They've put it to the test with their new Model Y. It is electric. They've also taken the Model Y drifting. Yes, they did use dyno mode. If you have a Tesla, do not use dyno mode, not just for the Model Y, for all of them. It's insanely dangerous to do it anywhere but on a dyno, funnily enough. The Twitter account of Out of Spec said this Model Y off-road test with ESP, sending power to the correct wheels, simulating a locking differential, and way better than any other Tesla has ever done before. And the final story of the week is all about the Tesla semi-truck. Various sightings of the semi from over the weekend suggest the all-electric truck is making its way down the western seaboard of the USA, from Washington through Oregon and back to its Fremont base in California. According to Gene at Teslarati, video captures of the Tesla semi have been seen, not driving, but being transported itself on the back of another semi-trailer, although this is being towed by a stinky diesel. It shows one of the prototypes covered. I mean, covered. They did not even hose it down afterwards. This is a filthy looking Tesla truck. Elon indicated in the Q4 earnings call that Tesla's semi would be produced in limited quantities as the company focused efforts on increasing battery production capacity. And given the size of the semi-truck and how many batteries it really needs, having a strong supply of cells is crucial to prevent a strain on other things like the Y, and even the power walls. Although don't the power walls use the 18650s coming from Panasonic, so maybe not so much. But anyway, I'll pop a link to Teslarati in the show notes if you want to read more. Hey, that's our show for today. Question of the week is a brand new one, so get your thinking caps on and email me with your answers to this. How can the EV community come together at this time and support each other? So I like the idea of offering free charging for the emergency services, but what else can be done? I've seen Elon Musk tweeting about making medical equipment at the factories or helping to source things as well. That's interesting. How can the EV community come together at this time and support each other. It could be something as simple as community groups or something. Well, let me know. And I haven't got any initial answers to this, so I'm crowdsourcing it to you, because I'm sure you've got better answers than I have. You can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, there are 724 previous shows in the archive. That sits there thanks to Patreon. The shows are made thanks to Patreon. If you're one of those people, thank you so much. Our premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith for Clean Tech Talent, and now Porsche of the Village Cincinnati and Audi Cincinnati East. And my partners, David Allen, thank you David, OEM Audio of New Zealand and evpower.co.nz, Paul O'Connor, TryEV.com, Gareth Hamer, eMobility Norway, Bob Boothby, and EVResource.com. And thank you, all of my exec producers as well. You are keeping the show on the air throughout this tough time. Alan Robson, Alan Shed, Alex Manahini, Alexander Frank, Anders Hove, Andrea Jefferson, Asir Khalid, Ashley Hill, Bjard Fuchstak, Brent Kingsford, Brian Thompson, Brian Weatherall, Bruce Bohannon, Charles Hall, Chris Hopkins, Colin Hennessy and Cam ZV, Craig Coles, Craig Rogers, Damien Davis, Darren Bird, Darren Feach, Darren San and Yorkshire EV, Dave Jewson, David Barkman, David Finch, David Partington, David Prescott, Derek Riley at Dublin EV Owners Club, Don McAllister at screencastsonline.com. If you're working from home and getting stuck on Mac stuff, he's got your back at screencastsonline.com. Enrico Stefan Shillo, Eru Kyun Nyombi, Frederick Rovic, Free Jewel, who's James, Jean Rubin, Gilberto Rosado, Jeff Lowe, Headley Wright, Ian Griffiths, Ian Sear, Jack Oakley, James Storr, Jerry Allison, Jim Duggan, Jim Morris. It's late. John Bailey, John C. Solar, John Lacey at Click Like Video NZ, John, who is Beardy McBeardface, and Ken EV, John Nodell, Juan Gonzalez, Ken Morris, Kevin Mayerson, Kyle Mayan, Lars Dallager, Lawrence D. Alan, Lee Brown, Luke Cully, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Mark Bossett, Marlin Shell, Martin Croft, Dorset Tradesman, Matt Piccioni, Maz Shah, Mia Oppelstrup, Michael and Luke Turrell, Michael Pastroni, Michael Cuffin, Mike Rogers, Mike Winter, Nathan Gore Brown, Neil E. Roberts from Sussex EVs, Nigel Miles, Northern Explorers, Ohad Aston, Paul Ridings, Paul Stevenson, Perry Simpkins, Pete Glass, Pete Gorton, Peter and D. Roberts and Oxon EVs, Phil Mouchet, Raj Badwell, Rajiv Narayan, Ralph Jensen, Renee Schneider, Rob Cooling at appledriving.co.uk, Rob Hermans, Robert Grace, Robin Tanner, Rupert Mitchell, Sari Kangasoja, Seiki Payne, Stephen Penn, Steve John, Thomas J. Tias, The Plug Seeker and his EV YouTube channel, Tim Gutteridge and William Langhorne. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.